2020. You don't believe, if you lead us in prayer, and after that, we'll pledge it.
I'd be honored. Lord, I want to thank you tonight for allowing us to be here together. I would ask your guidance to help us make right decisions. I would ask you to help us to be humble and give us grace. In your son's name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome everyone tonight. We can get a motion to adopt the agenda. Motion made by Mr. Allen, second by Mr. Bacon. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes. And board, the first item is resolution 20-7. Any more discussion on that?
Mr. Chairman, can we go on and vote on A and B at the same time, since they basically what we talked about Monday night, that way we get these two resolutions out of the way.
We can do that. Yes,
I make a motion to approve board items A and B as discussed in the work session on Monday night.
Motion by Mr. Beers, second by Mr. Allen. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes. Consent agenda. This would be, we can do A, B, and C there. Everyone can approve the consent agenda. Motion by Mr. Bacon, second by Mr. Jefferson. All in favor? Yes.
Yes.
Yes. The 2021 student code of conduct about cell phones, electronic communications device. Any discussion on that? Like motion approved. Second. Motion by Mr. Holmes, second by Mr. Bacon, all in favor? Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And 2021 student code of conduct revised the identification card policy. And before we have a discussion on this, I want to hear from these two principals.
Would you like to go first, Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Severe's not here.
Yes, sir.
I didn't see, you're the camera.
Let's let Ms. Severe come up first. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Just take a few minutes, give us your pros and cons.
Okay, take this off. Good evening. I did write down several things so you can kind of know holistically my thoughts. I would like to start off by saying that the safety and emotional well-being of our staff at Ward County Middle School and students is most important in my book. COVID-19 has impacted many of us sitting in this room. If your immediate family hasn't been impacted by COVID-19, I think we all need to count it as a blessing. Rather than looking at removing ID badges as a negative, I choose to look at utilizing that time previously used for ID badges in another manner. I would rather ensure that our staff and students are able to come to school or work in a virus-free environment. How will we do that? We will make sure all staff and students have their temperatures taken before they enter the building. This will ensure that our staff and students have the peace of mind that they're coming into a building that, to our knowledge, will be virus-free. That is the reason that I would choose to use the time previously allotted to check badges into the time to check temperatures. If I had to choose what's more important right now at this minute, I would say taking temperatures and isolating those that are sick rather than checking for badge compliance.
Thank you.
That's it.
Mr. Worthy's here, and he may have some items for Mr. Rouse as well. Would you come up, Mr. Worthy? Are you prepared to go?
ID badges, you know, I was in a high school setting. Good evening, board. I was in a high school setting back in my career a little while ago. We had ID badges, and I think the purpose of them are good, but the follow through makes it difficult. And what I mean by that, in the school that I was a part of, we fought that more than we fought other things. It started getting in the way of the regular routine of the day as far as instructional minutes. And while the idea of school IDs can keep us safe, it's comforting. It becomes not practical if everybody's not doing the exact same thing. I can only imagine how much time it takes away from administrators and classroom instruction. Like, it don't impact me here because we don't have them for pre-K, K2. Of course, y'all know that. That would be a definite a task to try to keep them on kids, and just like math is going to be. But and Dr. Rouse, he shared with me, he said although the name badge policy was not affected WCES, as an administrator, he can only imagine the time spent enforcing this policy in relation to the true safety value of the name badges to the time it takes to enforce. He says he would say it's a poor use of administrative time. How much safety does a student name badge requirement really provide? So that's, you know, me and him, neither one of us really impacts our schools, but that's just kind of an administrative point of view from it.
Thank you, Mr. Worthy. We appreciate it. Ms. Edwards, come on.
Good evening, guys. I just want to submit one quick thought before I start. Is, you know, we're not removing badges, we're revising the badge policy, which means we would still print those badges unless something's changed. Students would still have a badge 6th through 12th grades. And what they would do is be asked to have that badge on their person, so that if we stop you, we ask you, if we don't recognize your face, if we've never seen you. At the high school level, if you're requesting a transcript, or if you're purchasing student tickets, a parking pass, we can ask you for your ID, and you can present that as proof that you're a student at Worth County High School. So we're not going away with it altogether. And I agree with the things that Ms. Severe presented, the things that you've heard from the elementary and primary school principals. I agree with all of those. I want to say too about safety. Safety is extremely important. And that's something that matters a lot to me at the high school. I believe that, to echo Dr. Rouse's sentiments, the level of safety we're getting from the current badge policy is not worth the manpower we're putting into it right now. What statistics and research will tell you is that school shooters are current or previous students. They're already familiar with the building, they're familiar with the campus, and the staff is familiar with them. So if a current student walks in, ID badge or not, and they want to inflict harm on our students, that's something we have to deal with or without ID badges. Another thing you have to think of in my mind, as research also tells us, school shooters are students who either have suffered trauma, they've got mental health concerns, things that we as staff members should be watching for and trying to address along the way to prevent those things from happening. So from a safety standpoint, I think continuing our efforts to work with mental health and securing our perimeters, securing our buildings is what's going to ensure school safety more so than enforcing an ID around your neck. I wanted to share some actual numbers from Worth County High School from August to March 13th with you to give you a picture of the volume that we see. 160 students served at least one day in ISS this year for not wearing an ID badge. 39 of those students had 5 referrals for badges, which meant on the operation, I spoke with Mr. Brazier, who did most of our discipline this year. Many of the times, in an effort to help these students, in an effort to, especially when it comes to our students with disabilities and things of that nature who don't need to accrue all that ISS time, many times we only enforce 1 day of ISS instead of exactly what the code of conduct said. Those students missed 5 days of instructional time, those 39 days, or those 39 students rather, because they had 5 infractions. If we were following to the letter of the code of conduct, they would miss 14 days of school. Now, on a block schedule, it's double that. So on a block schedule, you're covering twice as much ground at the same time because you're on a semester. So on this year's methods that Mr. Frazier used, they would miss 2 weeks of school instruction. This coming year, they will miss almost 6 weeks of instruction because they didn't have a badge around the neck. So total days of instruction lost across those 160 students was 489 days of instruction. That's 3,423 class periods. There were not students in seats because they were in ISS because they didn't have a badge around the neck. If we went exactly by the book, that would have been 1,145 days of instruction lost. If we went 1 day for the first infraction, 2 for the second, 3rd for the 4th, 5 for the 5th, and then 3 days OSS for the 6th. You also would have had 149 days just about a school suspension for that. And that would have been 8,000 instructional periods lost if it had gone by the letter of the law. Talking about students with disabilities is the last thing I'll mention. We do have certain parameters we have to watch for those students. When they have 10 days of ISS or OSS, that means that we have to have manifestation meetings. I believe it means possible compensatory services. Correct me if I'm wrong. And the district can face penalties for that. Is that correct?
Well, it's not penalties, but the district has to serve the student with the disability because of the time that they lost in the classroom.
And it does cost money.
And it does cost money to the district. So all I submit to the board is that I think keeping the IDs, having them on your person will be sufficient for what we're trying to accomplish. It mimics a driver's license in real life more than what we're currently doing now, based on the numbers we're seeing.
Let me ask a question, just for clarification. There will be things that a student absolutely has to have that ID for.
That is correct.
And that will compel them to have and know where that ID is most of the time.
That is correct.
Can we also identify things going forward that we could add to that list that would encourage them to have it even more?
Absolutely. And I'm comfortable with, if we need to pursue disciplinary action for not having it on your person. I still think that's going to cut this down considerably because I do believe that students should follow code of conduct. Whatever that code of conduct says, they should follow. And it should be enforced in the way that it's written. So I think if we keep it, as we've mentioned before, we need to enforce it exactly the way it's written in the handbook.
But we chose not to enforce it the way it was written last year.
Well, I'll agree with you on that. However, I think if we had, we would triple the amount of time they lost in the classroom.
Or they would have started bringing their badges to school.
I disagree. I mean, I think it's 100 students, that's a quarter of our population, 160
I agree.
students.
We don't need to be taking them out. 100%, I agree. We should have taken them out.
I just think that, as many students as we have who live in poverty, who are transient between their households, whether it's because of a split family, divorced family, homelessness, I think we have students who legitimately, they don't get their hands on their ID badges through no fault of their own, and then we're punishing them when they get to school.
Thank you, Ms. Edwards. I
We
appreciate
were
it.
discussing this the other night, I don't remember, all this talk about they had to have it on their person also. What does this policy actually say?
The way it's revised,
I haven't revised it since the other night. It says that instead of having it around their neck, they have to have it on their person. If they're asked to produce it, they have to produce it. If they refuse to produce it, they could face a consequence. They have to have it in their possession to buy, they have to show it, to buy tickets.
we could ask for parking passes,
Right.
they could transfer it. That's what-
For example, like today I had to get a PO box. I had to produce a driving license, so I wouldn't get that PO box. However, I didn't have to show it to 3 people between here and Warwick. So my point is this, you are reducing the number of negative contacts between administrators and students, especially students that generally don't cause any issues. Those 160 kids that had a day of ISS for not having a badge, I'd be willing to bet you that 90% of those kids didn't get in trouble for anything else either.
Yeah,
So-
but according to Mr. Frazier, most of them were not habitual violators of other infractions in the code of conduct.
But if a kid comes in the building and forgets his ID, he instantly becomes a behavior issue because he doesn't have his ID around his neck.
Well, let's say it's, they're coming in late or everybody at the front desk doesn't know everyone was children coming in.
I agree.
Have they got to produce a badge to get in there?
When they come in the front door, if they come in after 8 o'clock, at 8 o'clock or after, they're gonna meet Ms. Conver, they have to sign in, which means that they have to sign in a computer, which pulls up at the campus, and it verifies that they are a student.
Right.
Our current policy doesn't say you have to have a badge to get in the door. says you have to have a badge to be in the building, so we don't prevent you from coming in the building. We bring you in and send you immediately to the media center, which is where they can produce badges. If you have a lost one, they can give you a temporary badge. If you don't have yours, and they log how many times
See,
you've been
what
without your
I'm
badge.
going back to is what you said a while ago about the shooters being just out of high school or something. I mean, they don't know all these children come in there, wants to stop one from walking in there and he's already inside. Hadn't produced anything but maybe a gun.
Well, and was that wrong?
What I was gonna say was this, Mr. Baker, the way school works, you know, when you intake in the morning, everybody comes to the door anyway. Except for this year, everybody's gonna walk through a temperature check. That's gonna be the difference this year. But ordinarily, when you're doing intake, the doors are wide open, everybody walks in a mass anyway.
I'm calling those to come in late.
They come in late. Standard procedure in almost every school in the country is they have to check into the front office and somebody has to verify their identification. And it's not done with this. It's done with,
Your student information system,
yeah,
that can't.
you log into your student information system so they know it's you. And trust me, the front office person may not know every single kid, but they know most of them. And it's more than you think. They develop a relationship.
Do they bring a ticket there and take it to their teacher?
Yes.
Like, we have a ticketing system. When a child signs in late, they print it, and they have to take that to their teacher to sign into their room.
So they have to sign in, they have a sign-in procedure.
They can't get past the front door.
And we
Get in the
don't-
lobby, but you can't get in.
And in cases like this year, you didn't collect badges before students left. So there's nothing preventing Jill, who graduated last Friday, from putting that badge on and walking through the student parking lot entrance. If our logic is, if you have a badge on, you're legitimate, all I gotta do is dig up somebody's badge and put it on and walk right through the door, because that's not the goal. The goal is to secure those entrances, using that check-in system, using the badges to the best of our ability. The point is, it's not an infallible system. I think we're relying on it like it is, but it isn't. It does have its quirks too. Temporary badges don't have names.
And what we're trying to show here is that although I understand that it's not perfect to change it to what we're asking, but it was a long way from perfect to where it was, and we think there's a better use of resources, and that's what we're asking. We're asking, and I know we're asking a lot, but I want to thank the principals for having the courage to come here tonight and speak. They spoke their mind, exactly what they thought, and they wanted to be a unified team, and I appreciate that very much. It shows true leadership.
Mr. Judy, stand up, please. I'm gonna try to be as succinct with this as I can be. You get into school with your badge. Can you open a door in the school in your badges, with your badges? Do we have the capability to do that for our students? That you plug in something into a computer that gives a kid, or a young man, young woman, access from 7:30 in the morning to 4 o'clock in the afternoon? Do we have that capability? So we could limit the number of students who come in who are not supposed to do that, because I'm almost positive, now I'm not sure because I don't know enough about computers, that you cut off all the badges from the kids who graduated last Friday, right? They won't have access. If we locked all our building down and only allowed students with badges where they put them in their pockets or wore them around the neck, access to our school building, right?
Well, did they ever have, did their badges ever open doors anywhere? No.
No,
But
they
we
didn't.
have the ability to do that.
Right, your issue would come into play when we talked through it, when we first did it, we have the ability, but is if somebody loses one on the street and somebody gets it, then they've got access to our building, so there's
But
that.
as soon as a student loses it, wouldn't we ask that person? that
If they
student,
tell us,
To look,
Right.
to report
if they
that.
tell us, yeah,
and-
you're as good as the information, but that's the catch-22.
But to your point, Casey Pope breached our building on ID he found in the parking lot. So once again, it's not an infallible system, if that's what we're looking for.
But locks are not to keep honest people out. Locks are to keep criminals, people who mean harm to our children.
Agree.
So, and I think if you go back and look at some of these statistics, like at Sandy Hook and some of the other places, those things prevented some things from happening. My concern is, how do you clear the building quickly if we ask, hey, you got a badge, I know that's Mr. Jefferson, come on, the police can clear you quickly out of the school building. I don't know Mr. Bacon because I don't work at the school. He don't have a badge. Now I've got to stop what I'm doing quickly and ask him to take his wallet or out of his purse, show me your badge so that I know that you're wasn't the one causing problems in the school. That's all I said. That's what I said Monday. That's what I'm saying. Safety is paramount among all of us. Our children are the most important things we have at the school. And if we can do something that is not convenient for putting kids in ISS, and I don't agree with putting kids in ISS, especially losing those kind of days. But I do believe in rules.
Well, this thing we voted on is to revise the student.
Yes, sir.
That would be revised.
It's revised.
That's right. Taking a requirement from wearing it to put it
I
in.
make a motion, we revise it. To approve.
Thank you.
All right, a motion been made by Mr. Oliver. Do I have a second?
Y'all want to revise it?
I don't want to revise it. What's in the handbook now, you wear it around your neck. I don't want to revise it.
So we don't have a second? Okay, motion fails.
I'm gonna go check on the check temperature.
What time, an hour or two extra, and do all that.
70 people's gonna walk through those temperature checks a minute, right?
Motion to approve the Worth County Schools Wellness Plan. We talked about that last.
A motion to approve the Worth County School Wellness Plan.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Bacon, second by Mr. Beard, all in favor?
Yes.
Yes, yes. Motion to approve mechanics salary schedule. Discussion, whatever talked about in the last few months.
Seth, you wanna come up and talk about it real quick?
I see it was approved back in May of 18. Or change.
Go ahead, Seth.
This motion is to approve the old mechanics salary schedule. Last year, we did a new mechanics schedule, but none of the mechanics moved to the new schedule because they were grandfathered in on the old schedule. This is just to approve it so we can have it in our, with all the salary schedules, when we're checked by auditors, that's really all this is, or just to basically approve what we've already approved in the past and just make sure we have our bases covered.
So this will be the salary scale we go by.
Well, they can choose to go to the new one, but they're staying on the old one. Last year, we were requested to hire a new mechanic that came in on the new schedule.
Or this is to cover the grandfather.
This is just approved, just cover the grandfather and the
Okay. Thank you, Seth. We have a motion to approve the salary schedule.
Motion to approve the salary schedule for the mechanics.
Motion by Mr. Beard, second by Mr. Jefferson, all in favor?
Yes.
Abstain.
Mr. Oliver abstains. Okay, now to the superintendent's report.
Oh, everything, Mr. Chairman, for that.
Any more discussion? More discussion?
I looked over mine, executive session stuff, and I'm fine.
Well, I have, some for the executive session. I think we need to go in for, executive session if I could get a motion made.
Like,
Motion to go to executive session. Motion made to go into executive session. Who's first now? It has. Sorry. Motion by Mr. Beal, Alden, second by Mr. Bacon, all in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Going to executive session at 7:25. Thank y'all for coming.
We can do it.
Yes, I have. I started everywhere.
Well, I know
We gotta have.
shut it down.
Shut it down.
All right.